This is something we haven't done before here on the Property Management Frame Breakers podcast. And while Mark Ainley is no stranger to our audience, he was one of the first episodes on the show because he is really one of the guys that opened up my eyes to the property management industry, and the way that he has built his business and marketed it is very much in line with the way I see the world and the things I've done in the past. He honored me by having me on his show. And I got to talk a little bit about my origin story and things I've done, and then really got into AI, not from the perspective of just property management as much as from the perspective of real estate investing and what's happening in real estate investing, because that's really, again, the frame through which I see the world as a real estate investor is how I got into this space. And that's his audience on the Straight Up Chicago Investor podcast is towards real estate investors. So this is me on his show. If you've listened to his show already on the Straight Up Chicago Investor podcast, you've already heard this. But I wanted to release it here. And, really, I encourage you to go listen to his podcast. If I was running a property management company, I would just 100% copy his strategy of content creation and how he runs his podcast and the community he's built and all those things. So enjoy this episode about me. Welcome to the Property Management Frame Breakers podcast. I'm your host, Pablo Gonzalez, and I am here to introduce you to the folks in the property management space that have broken the frame of what you may believe was possible. This podcast is presented by Vendoroo. It is your all-in-one AI solution for resolving your maintenance needs. Let's go.
All right, Pablo, welcome to the Underground.
Man, I cannot believe I'm here. This is awesome, dude. I'm happy to be here. Let's go. I like to be somebody that is able to sneak into cool clubs, for sure, which is I feel like I'm doing here.
Now, man, a little background. I mean, you and me met 3 years ago at a NARPM conference, and I gravitated towards you because you're up there on stage speaking about building a community from a marketing standpoint. And when I was sitting in the audience, I thought about Straight Up Chicago Investor, and I thought, holy shit, me and Tom have built a community. We literally have a Facebook community. We have people that come, they like to hang around us. They like to come to events and stuff like that. And you hit it off, and we started working on something. And what episode was did we look that up for Finance of America?
I don't know if we figured it out.
289, somewhere in that area.
So we have so you introduced us to the people at Finance of America, which are coincidentally down the street.
Yeah, and that was like 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
That happened pretty quickly after that event.
Yeah, so it had been 2 summers ago, and we had them on here, and then we did the event live. You couldn't make it that night, but that was a success. And
that was
I
cool.
mean, here we are a few years later.
Yeah.
You've taken a couple changes, but community, man. It's all about community, right? And you and me have done a pretty good job on accident doing that.
Yeah. I guess, how did you get started in the, I'll call it this content creation? Like, when did you realize, all right, this is my path and I'm going to help others do this?
I have, I would say my origin story really came in almost exactly 11 years ago. About 11 and a half years ago, I was in this like dead end point in my career, right? I had been a director of sustainability for a construction company, and that company had been bought by an international conglomerate. And there was people saying like, what do you do? Right?
I was just thinking that.
Yeah, right?
Side note to that, how many entrepreneurs do you think spun out from a company being bought? Like a merger acquisition in the corporate world has spun out so many people to be like, all right, F it, I'm out of here.
Yeah,
that's what happened to me.
Yeah.
And that was, my first foray into entrepreneurship was green building consulting, right? And 2 years into it, I was like, all right, my biggest client wants to bring me in-house. They're getting acquired. They're going to have all this funding. They want to do these bigger projects, right? So like I went in there, I was having a blast. I thought I had a really cool title, making over $100,000 a year in my early 30s and thought I made it. And then this happened. Luckily, at the same time, I got super involved in the Miami community. I got an email from Habitat for Humanity saying that millennials suck at being involved in philanthropies, and they're looking to form a young professional group. Formed this young professional group. It became so successful that they put me on the board of Habitat, and then I got on the board of multiple charities. All this stuff is happening, and I had reached this point in my career where I'm getting named to like a top 20 under 40 in Brickell magazine in Miami, while these people that bought the company are asking me what the heck I do for a living, right? and then my brother passed away, and 1,200 people showed up to his funeral. And I had this like out of body experience where I saw these people and I'm like, this is the 1,200 people that helped us over the last 2 years in this battle with pancreatic cancer, and helped my mom and helped my sister-in-law and helped my dad and helped me and all this thing. And they're all carrying us right now. And the value of this community is something that like brings you unlike anything else, right? Like unlike anything else could it have served all these different needs. And no matter what I feel about the Catholic Church, this was inside like our like church, or like our parish. I was like, no matter how much I've been like fighting against the ideology of the Catholic Church since I'm like 14, I'm never leaving this again. And I got struck by this idea of like, oh, this just solved for like the most epic churn case of all time. And that's a business case. And I've just chased this idea of like solving business use cases through community. And I first started copying what I was doing in these like nonprofits of like how you hold these events and you connect with people on stages. And that then brings me like these personal connections while serving a small audience. And then 2017, Gary Vee popped onto the screen. I was like, oh, this dude is doing exactly the same thing, but he's layering content on top of it to make this kind of like ground and pound networking community building thing that I've been doing scale. And so that's when content came into it. And I started doing very similar things. I started hosting Zoom events in like early 2018 in order to scale it for this like other startup that I ended up taking a part of. And it's all just kind of like continued and snowballed through.
Yep. All right. First Zoom event, how many people show up? You're killing it now, but like day one.
Well, I joined a startup for this guy that had built a following doing e-commerce stuff in 2018, and he already had an audience, right? So we had plenty of people show up, right? Like it was like maybe like 30 people showed up. So it wasn't like a total dud because he already had an audience. He was already looking at it in content. The question was, can we make this a community flywheel, start bringing in people close, which is what I think you guys have been much more deliberate about over the last couple of years of doing these lives, getting people to show up, using the chat of a live show as like a way for people to connect with each other and then want to come to your events and stuff like that.
All right, so at this point, you decide like, hey, I can make a career out of helping people build communities?
Yeah, so...
Because there had to be a monetary, like how do I connect this with making money?
Yeah. There was a real moment, right? So from the construction thing 11 years ago, started using these tricks to become a business developer, became the business developer of that company, and then had like a crossroads where I was either going to go be VP of business development for another construction company, or I got the opportunity to join this like startup, this e-commerce startup in Jacksonville. And I basically just like jumped into a dumpster fire because I wanted to like prove this thing beyond like just the city that I'm from, right? Like I cashed in all my chips on the community thing in Miami, and I was like, I need to find a way that this scales beyond just a geographical boundary, and I want to see if I can like do this in a rapid way. So I joined that startup, jumped into like a dumpster fire, right? Like rip off report. I realized that this wasn't the business that was perfect for it, but I turned the business around in 1 year as their VP of business development and strategy. And then at that point, end of 2018, early 2019, I decided to go all in on this. And I took like a 90-day purposeful pause, January to March, to just kind of like detox, plan what I want to do, came up with a language around community creation for business development. I went to like 5 different conferences and just kind of like spit, right? And just kind of figured out what we're going to do next, how I'm going to do this thing. And March 2019 was when I went all in on this. It took me about like 4 months to get a client. And by the end of the year, I had landed this real estate company in Jacksonville where we started January 2020. By the end of 2020, we had created a $40 million customer acquisition channel. And that was really kind of like the launch of my company and my career in this. That was really real.
So talk to us about that. I want to dive more into the content for JWB, right?
Yeah.
It's JWB, they're a turnkey company out of Jacksonville. They buy them, rehab them, and sell them to passive investors around the country. And you teamed up with them and you started building a community for basically passive investors, correct?
Yeah.
And you guys, they've hit 500 episodes already. So he's even past us on the show. So
we did like 2 episodes a week for a long time.
All right.
So it's kind of cheating.
All right. But so you're at 500 episodes.
Yeah.
We do 1.5 technically. So you at 500 episodes, like was that, did that turn into what you think it was going to be? Like, or that was one of your first clients. Like, how'd you sell him, I guess? Like on like,
good call.
I'd be curious.
Yeah. So
JW, or sell yourself that it could work.
Honestly, man, I just came up with something different, right? Like they're a turnkey rental property investment company, unlike most other turnkey rental property investing companies in the fact that they're like completely vertically integrated. These guys were on the front page of the Wall Street Journal in 2014 talking about build to rent in infill lots, right? So they've owned the whole process from day one, from the land acquisition to the construction on the lot to renovation in existing lots to the property management piece to the portfolio management piece, and now they're even developing 20 city blocks of downtown Jacksonville, right? So they're just like all in-house, and they show up very differently than other turnkey products or other real estate investing kind of like offerings. So they were having a problem where they were very well known, but most of their new client acquisition was coming through these like coaching programs, right? The ones where you like pay 25 grand to like teach you how to do real estate investing, and then they just introduce you to them. And they were paying these like big fees, and their new clients being closed off the website that didn't come from these channels was like absurdly low, like under 1%. And Greg at the time was like, I need people to understand us better, to trust us, so that we don't have to like not own our customer acquisition. Super prescient, right? Like this is end of 2019. All of these groups really took a dive during COVID because they were event companies essentially, right? Mm-hmm. So he wanted to own that channel. And his thesis was like, well, I got to make content. I got to get people to like understand us, like us, get to know us in order to do business with us. And everybody that he had gone to was just like a social media marketing company that was like, yeah, make content and I'll edit and distribute it for you. But he didn't really want to be Gary Vee, right? Like he wasn't like, he felt like a douche every single time someone said something funny in the office. He's like, oh, do it again, and let me dig up my phone, right? So I presented him with a different way of doing it. I said, hey, listen, instead of like you making content in the office and pestering people about it, let's start a show. And let's not just start a show that's a podcast offline, but let's start a podcast online that people can join from day one in the audience, and we treat it like an internet talk show instead of like an offline podcast. And what you really, really need to do is not just talk about IRRs and NOI from these properties. You need to, first of all, get people to understand why Jacksonville is special, right? Because someone coming from Miami, when you try to sell me a rental property in Jacksonville, I was like, Jacksonville, yeah, right. So you need to talk about the market, and more importantly, you need to show your clients, right? Like people want to do business with people that they identify with, right? So like if you show off your clients, people are going to be like, oh, okay, I see myself in that person, right? So that was the vision. And he had interviewed a couple other people that all told him the same thing. I told him something completely different that really made sense to him in a way that would scale. And I started with like a contract. It was like a $6,500 a month contract where I was outsourcing like $5,800 up. A month. Like I was making no money on it, but I went all in on how do we make this freaking work. And then by end of year one, I had figured out how to build a business behind it.
A lot of people listening they want to raise money, or they want to find those passive investors, maybe for a little different reason. Where is it what are some tips or advice you give people that are, maybe they're trying to buy a 18-unit building and they need to get a couple $100,000? Like how do they approach that passive investor? What does that passive investor want, or any kind of insights to that?
Yeah. First of all, I would ask yourself what's different about what you're doing. Like what's in it for them, right? Like I think for each deal that you're bringing out, there is something about it, right? Like what's your thesis, man? Like what are you really promoting? These guys were really promoting this like boomtown of Jacksonville, right? Like I have another real estate investing group that has this like thesis around medical office buildings and this like critical infrastructure that we need about an hour to 2 hour outside of like city centers and whatnot, right? So like start with the problem that you're solving and the reasons why it really happens, and design a conversation that isn't about like you as much as this opportunity that you see, right? And most of the time, like you can kind of like categorize that conversation into like, this is what the world looks like today. These are the pains in the world that exist today. This is how the world is changing. And this is how those changes can either make those pains worse, or because the world is changing, now we have an opportunity to like approach it differently based on this change. And now those pains go away completely and we have this beautiful new future, right? If you can get kind of clear on that narrative, that's called the point of view narrative. Then you can start inviting people into that conversation. Anybody that sees the world and the pains the way that you do can come into the conversation, right? I'm sure a lot of your clients, if they're investing with you, they believe in these things that you're saying. So you don't just have to talk about how great the investment is, but you can like rail against the reasons why they believe in this thesis and rail and talk about like this change that we all agree that's happening in the world and how it can create this new future, right? So I would say get clear on that and then invite people into the conversation, invite your clients into the conversation, the people that have invested with you, that have had past success with you, invite the partners that are in it with you, invite all these other like stakeholders into this conversation. And don't make it about you, right? Like you guys are talking about Chicago. You're not talking about yourselves and how great you are. You're talking about the real estate ecosystem in Chicago, right? It has to be a conversation that people can see themselves in, as opposed to like, come talk about how great I am.
So it's less about selling, I'm gonna get you a 10% return. It's more about the story that ultimately the result is far less important, but the result is just naturally comes from the story and why it's so great.
If the story feels inevitable, then people will buy in. Right? Like if you're painting a story of like, hey, this is how the world is changing and you can either benefit from this change or you can just sit there and get screwed by it. Yeah. Right?
That brings me back to the tech sales days so much because that was the big thing. Like this is happening like, the digital revolution, this is going back 10, 15 years, right? Like sounds silly to say out loud right now. But, the world is changing. Like are you going to be the one left behind? Like that FOMO is so powerful for people to be like, oh shit, like I need to do something here.
Totally, right? So like if you're talking real estate, I think you start with this idea of 401ks are at an all-time high and Americans have never been less confident in their retirement plans right now. Like, what are we doing here? We can continue investing in markets, but I think there's a time for like people that are really setting themselves for doing well later in life to have real estate in their portfolio as well, right? Yeah. Like, so you got to go out and do that. And then insert your thesis on like, oh, and then my thing is this, and then you can talk to the different stakeholders that have to do with that piece. I think is how I would design anything. If I have a local show, I would do exactly what you guys are doing, right? Like this idea of kind of like talking about all the different investors in Chicago and the different ways that they approach it and the different neighborhoods and then come on and talk about like topical things that are happening. I think this is the formula. What you guys are doing is very, very similar.
Last year we went to raise money for a industrial building we're buying. Yeah. And I thought, no problem. 25 phone calls, I'll raise $2.5 million, no problem. Yeah. And I realized at that point how many of my friends were the actual entrepreneur and not the passive. Like there's a big difference in your network. Yeah. Like everyone I called, they're like, no, dude, I'm about to take me out my own building. You want to invest in that? And I'm like, no, man, like don't spend this. Yeah. So like the passive investor is almost quieter behind the scenes. That's not even out there. Yeah. So for me, I found that to be challenging. And I think I found a great group of people, but it's totally different.
Yeah. Kind of flipping the question, what are some of the, call it cringe things you see there online? Like what are some of the not to do when you're trying to get your name out there and you're trying to build a community?
Man, it's
we could just scroll through LinkedIn together right now and find a lot of examples.
Yeah, it's the self-promotion stuff. You should. I know that you guys are Gary Vee disciples here too, right? Like the whole like 80-20% jab right hook stuff.
I became only because of you.
Like really?
You brought me that book 2 years ago, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh shit. And he's the one that's prompted me to everything's free. Yeah, just keep throwing it out there. So like you get more reps in there. That's why we end up sending out 1 million emails a month. It's like based on that. But it's all because of you, technically. Oh, interesting. So keep going.
So I mean, I like to me, what works and doesn't work in person is what doesn't work online, man. Like it's really just scaled communication. So if you're at a networking event and you're the freaking like business card sprayer that's like just asking people for business nonstop, you're not going to do well. And you're going to have to figure out another way to do it, right? Like you have to figure out a way of like being the most interested person in the room as opposed to trying to be the most interesting person in the room kind of thing. I think content works the same way. Like if all you are doing is repeating what your offer is and repeating about how great you are and all that stuff, you're only going to speak to a very small part of the population, right? Like it's like 3% of your market is in a buying cycle, another 6% is within 90 days of a buying cycle, and then the rest of the people just don't give a shit. So you got to find a way to like open up the aperture of like what you're talking about, and the people that are really just out there self-promoting and doing those kinds of things, that's a mistake. So like the self-promotion cacophony to me is real. And then the mistake that I made for a really, really long time is not being crystal clear on that like overarching narrative, that whole like where the world is changing and all that stuff. Because you can make a lot of content. You can be like, all right, I'm gonna go promote a whole bunch of people. My first thing was like, all right, if I talk to Mark and I make a podcast with Mark, and then I cut up a piece with Mark and I tag Mark about it, then like Mark's friends are gonna see me, and then I'm gonna slowly grow my audience. Cool. I got known that way, but people didn't I got recognizable that way, but people didn't know how to do business with me that way. Right. So like you can show up everywhere and you can be the Morgan and Morgan of like the internet watering hole that you live in, but until you start to tie it into like an overall narrative and like understand how the pieces that you put out fit into an overall story, then it doesn't start to really, really compound, right? Like then it's just kind of like noise everywhere, and you're just like recognizable, but you still need to go through that effort of like explaining to people who you are until you tie it into that narrative. So it's like the combination of like understanding the narrative and being like tied to the narrative is kind of like the best practices.
Yep, good stuff. All right, and then you mentioned, you start getting yourself out there. Mm-hmm. When did this really start to scale? You had your one client, you grew them, like that was a good 6 months, but then like you're still living in 9 off this one client. Like that's a lot of restless nights.
Yeah. You guys want to talk about how much I suck as an entrepreneur? I'm in. Man, when you hit a home run in one of your first 3 at bats, like in building a business, you start to think you're better than you are, right? So it took me a solid 3 years to just like be like, okay, what I did with these people, COVID really helped, right? Like we started January of 2020. COVID hits March 2020, all of a sudden people really want to show up to your internet talk show when you're controlling their money, right? So like I had to really kind of like understand the fundamentals of how it worked. It took me about 3 years, man, is the short answer. From like, I'm having success, massive success with this person. They're writing about me and like I've been written about in like multiple business books as a case study now, but it still took me 3 years to figure out how to actually like make more money than I was ever been making before by building a business around it, like understanding the true principles and the pace of it and operationalizing all that type of stuff. And, it was, I don't know, man, I think it's just the entrepreneurial journey of like, you got to get punched in the face enough times for you to like understand when to have your guard up and when to punch back. Right.
Mm-hmm. And how, cause you're selling like, hey, I'm going to make your business better. Yeah. Right. That's the real fundamental proposition. Yeah. How do you come up with like pricing for that client?
Yeah.
Right. Because like in our world, it's easy. Like, there's an expected return people want. If you want investors, and it's almost like, hey, I can hit this return. Here's the deal. In your world, it's like this abstract thing of like, hey, I can, get you 20% more, or I can build this for you. And it's almost like, it's almost like theory. So how do you put a price on that? And like
trial and error, man. Like that was like what I really had to learn in those first 3 years, right? Because I went in with this home run result, and I'm like, well, this is a super involved process, so I'm going to charge $8,500 a month for this thing, and like this is how we go. And very few people are going to pay an agency with very little track record how to, like what's $8,500 a month, 90 grand a year, almost 100 grand a year, in order to like implement this like long-term thing. I had to figure out how to like create wins in the short run in order to took a page out of your boy Hormozi. I see that Alex Hormozi's book is out front here. This idea of like front-loading value and top-tier pricing, and then reducing pricing on the back end as the value decreases, but you still feel like you're winning kind of thing. It was like a lot of like pricing gamesmanship and strategy and psychology behind it that I had to figure out, until I figured out, man, I can do this like 90-day launch where people come up with this narrative and come up with this like content piece and like already have these pieces that they can use in their existing funnels to accelerate pipeline and increase trust. That was like the KPI that I really tied to, is like, how can we accelerate your pipeline first? And then it starts to build this like new pipeline and this new level of trust. So like, it took me about 3 years to figure that piece out, how you like front load the engagement where you win in 90 days. And then you have the option to like continue doing this thing over time.
Yeah. And then you're in not just real estate, you're in all different verticals?
Man, I've been pretty focused here in this like property management vertical for the last 2 years because of my involvement with Vendoroo. But yeah, man, like that company, the Be The Stage, which is my marketing agency, is essentially just like a cash flow mechanism for me to continue to like live out this thesis of how we can do this community creation thing. It happens to be that real estate is a really great place for it because it's such like a gregarious culture and people all want to collaborate and all this type of stuff happens. But I've done it in med tech and in AI and all these different things. Even in like trade show services, I've like done a bunch of different things. And then I take all that cash and I invest it in real estate because I'm not really building like a sellable company kind of thing.
He told me he's house hacking right now.
Nice.
Yeah,
In the beach.
Yeah. I got a duplex in Atlantic Beach, Florida, right now, where I'm living in one and renting the other, and we're gonna continue playing that game.
Nice.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of friends of the pod who do their their agents, their investors, whatever. They do their their monthly meetup. There's probably there's 10 good ones in the city we can name here, and then they get a little bit of a Facebook community from that, and they're getting their names out there. What's like? Can you give us a little taste here? Like, what's the next step? Right, because those things feel like they get stale, and I can see when I go to the events, they're like, "Oh, I gotta be here on a Thursday again," and there's 20 people here. Sometimes there's 50. Like, for that person, and there's several of them listening. Like, what's the next step? Like, what should they be looking at?
Well, are they making content at this meetup? Is it programmatic? Is it just like a networking thing?
It's usually bringing a speaker, right? Usually, they'll invite Mark or they'll invite someone and to come talk about a specific topic, and that's the draw.
Those are the best ones.
And then you have an hour to network.
But they're not doing that stuff. It kind of stops at bringing the people together and giving them an online platform to speak at, and then it just kind of ends. And that, unless you're continually having big events or whatever.
Yeah.
But then again, that's the level of promotion you got to do for the event. So
yeah.
People go through seasons and then they kind of die down. So how to keep those things sustainable. I think we've kind of even.
I would never want to do an event. I would never want to do a monthly event. Like there's just too much work.
Monthly event is aggressive, right? Like monthly event is hard for a business of our scale, right? Like I would say like a quarterly event is probably much more apt for you guys. And I think an online monthly event is probably where you want to be, right? So I would think of it. Here's how I think of it. And if because I don't know what they're doing that's gotten it stale or not, right? But like the idea is if you have a podcast and you're talking about this narrative over time, every 90 days, look at the most interesting people that you had over the last 90 days and which one of those people should meet to talk about something in particular. That's the live event, right? Like that's either the Zoom panel webinar that you do, or it's the in-person event that you do. That it's like, hey, I'm bringing in these guys that you can, or ladies that you've already heard, they're already interested. You saw that they had like a take on this like one angle. We're gonna open up and have this conversation, the four of us, kind of thing, right? And I would put that on a cycle, right? So like every 90 days, you're looking at like the last 90 days of guests. You're thinking, what's the what are the best pairings for a live event here? And now when you're inviting people to a live event, you're not saying, oh, we're just going to come network. This one person's going to talk. You're saying, hey, these three people, look, you can already like check into them. They're smart. You want to meet them because you can listen to this podcast episode already. It helps you pre-promote that. You're having them together. They're inviting people as well, right? So they get some like a certain level of ownership and allows it to scale. And you rinse and repeat that at least quarterly until you get to the point where you can have like a yearly event that you bring and you play all the hits.
What about the people that don't have a podcast? Because there's a lot, what he's referencing, there's a bunch of people they start a group in a certain neighborhood of part of the city, and those just go stale. And mostly because there's such a heavy lift on the organizer side. Like, what do they do to keep that attractive or keep people coming in?
You got to make content, man. like I think those people add a podcast to the game. And that now starts becoming this like feeder system of how you can make your events better.
Yeah.
And you get to like to me the podcast is like it's the building block, right? It's like the atomic unit of it, right? Because having the podcast, when you have interesting people that you meet or that you want to meet, you can invite them on the podcast, getting into that conversation. That's way less task intensive than having a monthly event, right? So like just get into it. The people that you meet from your monthly events, the four most interesting people that you met at your event, bring them on your podcast, have them on for the next 4 weeks kind of thing, right? So like tying the in-person thing with the online thing and how you mix that is generally where you get your unlock, right? So you guys that have a fully functioning podcast, you can feed that into your monthly, quarterly in-person events. Person that has monthly, quarterly in-person events, use that to feed into the podcast. And then it's just a game of like recognizing value and putting it together in different ways that can continue to promote it.
Yep. I'm going to ask a question for our realtor friends here.
Yeah.
Right. So they're not necessarily looking to raise money, but they want everyone in their sphere,
Yeah.
like their friends' to know that they're a realtor. If they're ever looking to buy or sell, and you never know when it's going to happen, right? It could happen 3 years from now, next Tuesday, never. What are some of the tips for someone like that that's almost like needs to constantly be out there?
Yeah.
Because it's a weird sales cycle for them.
Totally. If I was a realtor, I would think of how do I become like the digital mayor of the town, right? Like I would be going to local businesses and interviewing the local businesses about what they're doing and what they have to offer, and then promoting all these like different types of like be known for the person that has the inside scoop on something that your clients want to have an inside scoop on, right? So as a realtor, I would man, like I would get really good at understanding, like there is certain super connectors inside of the community that you sell to as a realtor that I would look to connect with and have on and get into their like expertise. The head of like the PTA for whatever school, right? Like I would have ongoing content about like the best schools in the neighborhood and what these different schools are doing differently, the best restaurants in the neighborhood and what they're doing differently, the employers in the neighborhood and kind of like how the area is growing. I would do that. And if you're showing up that way, I mean, there's a really interesting case study right now. There's this realtor in Jacksonville, this guy, Josh. He essentially has figured out this like AI workflow where he's got his like AI avatar, and he's got a team that's like scouring the Jacksonville Business Journal and all the different kind of like publications of like that are announcing different things that are happening in Jacksonville. And he just has like a content stream that takes like what's happening in like the local newspaper stuff that you as a realtor are always reading because you're looking for like events and blah, 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 blah. But he's just taking those stories, publishing them on his like Instagram feed. It's like Jacks with Josh. And he's building this like big following around that. And he's just like, oh, you know, so like this company's coming to town, blah, 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 blah. Follow me. I'm the digital mayor of Jacksonville. I have the scoops on this stuff for that. So like figure out the things that like you as a realtor and the people that you sell to really kind of like care about, and just be the connection point for that. And then you can be hosting these local events at these businesses that you're promoting, and you know, like having these kinds of things.
I love the title he gives them. Like we got here, cost seg Kev. Like that's all he does, cost segs.
Yeah.
We got Chance the lawyer. Like that's like I love these little names because like that you that's your identity. Then you are just now the attorney. So
giving people nicknames in your content stream and in your community is one of the most powerful things that you can do in order to get them to buy in and give them an identity. And like they come back and they feel seen and they're like, oh yeah, it's me, I'm GC or whatever, right? Like, I say GC because that's you guys' name, but like Greg Cohen from JWB, I nicknamed him GC, and that's what he's known as, right? And we got another guy that we call the MVP, and we got another guy that we call the Ringmaster, and we got a lady that we call the Maven, and like, you know, like giving people these like nicknames. Community building is this like game of awarding status, right? And if you can give people a status that gives them status within the community and status that helps them like look valuable outside of the community, then you've created this like perfect kind of like path of somebody that just got to the club, they're on the outside, but they know exactly how to get into the club, then get into the VIP, and then get into the DJ booth, right? And you got to like showcase the fact that like, dude, you add value, I'm going to put you on the stage, and I'm going to star make you as well.
Yeah, I think everything you just laid out there makes perfect sense. The problem is it's hard. People probably do it like, oh, I'll go a week, I'll do 2 weeks, but like, it's a job to just to have constantly put out content when there's no immediate gratification for doing it.
Yeah.
It gets tough.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, it's gotten a lot easier to make this content, right? Like ways of editing and whatever to like do this type of stuff has gotten a lot easier. That is why, to me, the content plus in-person stuff really, really matters, right? Because you're going to get less pings on just the content side, right? Like so most people make content, they do it audience, and they're like, where's my audience? I'm going to go make a piece of it, and I'm going to throw it out into this cave and hope that I hear an echo, right?
Yeah.
I think of content as a relationship out. If I'm making content with the people that I want to be friends with, that I want to be guilty by association with, that I want to connect with, that I want the referrals from to begin with, then that, you know, like that atomic unit becomes the relationship, not the piece of content, right? The content is just kind of like how you spread out and how you allow it to scale. So the idea of like showcasing others and building it around the story and like bringing people into the story, to me, is the thing, because at least you're networking.
Yep. Cool.
So, you know, since we met, you had this all this took place for the most part, and then you went deep on AI.
Yeah.
and you teamed up with Vendoroo. I'm curious just kind of how that transition happened, how that conversation came up, and why AI. I know you have a whole thesis on why AI, especially in the real estate space.
Yeah, man.
Break that down.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thank you for that. I don't know about you guys, man, but I'm 45. You're 45, probably
Close.
somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this moment where when like the metaverse stuff was happening, I was like, God damn it, I missed another thing, bro. Like I'm at the peak of my powers. Why didn't I buy, like, why didn't I get involved in like the crypto stuff? Why didn't I get involved? Right? Like, you know, like I had missed all these other things. Like I wasn't a programmer in the 90s. I didn't start selling on eBay in college and you know, I missed all these different things. And I remember thinking to myself, like, circa 2023, dude, the next wave, I'm at the peak of my powers, I'm going in, you know, right? So like I had that already in my front, you know, what's called the...
You're ready to pounce.
The reticular activator, right? Like I was looking for it, right? And then where we met, right? So NARP and Broker Owner 2024, I got to keynote that thing. That was the biggest keynote of my career at the time. And I knew that, like, I believe in this like power of the stage and whatever. So I started running I wanted to run ads to that audience. So by the time I got there, people were like, oh, this famous guy's on stage, right? So, and I didn't really know how to find property managers on LinkedIn. So I just looked up like the sponsors of the events and built a lookalike audience off of that to run those ads. And then I just kept running ads afterwards to that similar audience. After that talk, like 3-4 months later, it was like that was in probably March or April. The founder of Vendoroo slid into my DMs in a July morning on a Sunday and was like, hey, you know, I've been looking for a guy like you. You know, what are you just getting started? Whatever. Anyways, we got into this whole thing of, you want to be a part of this, you want to be, and I'm like, dude, I just figured out how to be an entrepreneur. Like I'm not joining your company, bro. Like you can either be my client or like get out of here. I'm not taking equity in something I don't know. But I did my 90-day thing, of which I launched for people, which allows me to like really understand how deep I want to go in and creates these wins for them as well. And within 90 days, I was just like, okay, this is it. This is the wave, right? Like they were solving the biggest pain point in an industry with a new technology that had never really existed before. The clients that I was talking to were giving me these like transformational results stories. And I thought to myself, man, I can keep on just doing this thing on the side in like my little like lab of building community, or I've always been curious what this flywheel that I built looks like inside of a Silicon Valley Mortal Kombat tournament, fast growth startup kind of thing. So ended up seeing that. And then what I saw in AI inside this space is what we were talking about earlier, right? Like the formula for people adopting like a transformational innovation. It's called the category formula. Context change leads to a new missing, leads to the reason for actually doing something different, for innovating, right? And what I was seeing inside real estate and inside property management specifically is that, yes, the whole world is going through this like AI context change, right? Like the tooling of things that we have availability for productivity, that's changing for everybody. So that's one big context change I wanted to be a part of. But then specifically in real estate investing and buy and hold real estate investing, which involves property management, there's two massive context changes that are happening. One is the great generational wealth transfer is now changing the people that own these assets and need to be serviced by these assets and have different requirements and different fears and different like, you know, ways of acting and ways that they want to be treated. And then, so like the customer is changing, and then the rules of the game are really, really changing, right? Like property management and real estate investing has gone from this kind of like cottage industry that you got to know someone to get in, to like this really big, loud space online where everybody's teaching how to do this. A, B, the affordability crisis is now creating all these different pain points where the mayor of New York is getting elected based on like a anti-property management standpoint, right? Like all of a sudden you got this giant spotlight on you. And then the entrepreneur through acquisition wave is also happening, right? Like property management went from this like business that nobody really wanted to get into and were like forced into, people are like choosing to be property managers because it has these kinds of like things. So I saw these three big changes happening. I was like, okay, this is the exact conditions where the idea of creating community for like the weird ones that are jumping in early and getting these outside results in a way to like validate adopting something new and scary is kind of like the perfect conditions for this. And God damn it, I wanted to be on that wave, man. You know?
can't miss now.
Yeah.
See, we're going back to FOMO again. See? Can you summarize like what does Vendoroo do?
Yeah.
Like give us an idea for our listeners who haven't heard.
Yeah, the easiest way to put it is Vendoroo does AI maintenance coordination, right? So like what we've realized is that from when a renter has an issue in their home, their sink is leaking to the point that it's fixed and it's closed out and is billed, there is 18 to 22 distinct like touch points, decision-making things that need to happen that create this like barrage of to-dos and tasks that have to happen in property management. And on top of that, maintenance is ambulatory. It's not predictable like leasing. It's not predictable like all these other things. When it happens, it happens. And when there's a weather event, it happens in bunches and you got to get to it, right? So using AI to automate this like very, very highly contextual decision-making process that takes a lot of manual coordination is what Vendoroo does via a AI voice line that takes in the call and is able to like figure out, is this an emergency, is it not, is it just a work order, are they looking to talk to Mark, or like can I just answer a couple of questions here, to a troubleshooting AI that then like texts back and forth to make sure that whatever is happening, you know exactly what's going on, the condition in the property, troubleshoots away a lot of things, to then selecting the right vendor, coordinating with the vendor and the renter for the visit, following up to get all the paperwork, making sure everything is done, all the way to automating that whole piece of the pie.
Yep. And then this is not something that sits on like an AppFolio. This is a competitor to a product like that. Is that correct?
No, it actually works inside of AppFolio.
It's probably comparable to an employee. Like
it's like a sub.
Instead of hiring a guy in Mexico to do all your coordination, when you're getting a little larger.
Got it. So it's not a baked in CRM. It enhances your CRM and
Yeah.
It can stand
And your
alone if you
workflow.
don't have a CRM even.
Are you familiar with the term agentic AI?
No.
So like AI agents, right? Like it's kind of like the big shift in the big shift has been whatever to AI, but like the even bigger shift has been this idea that like we're going from building cars that people can operate to building drivers for those cars.
Yep.
Right? Like
I
that's
won my first Waymo last week.
yeah.
The best thing I did all weekend.
Yeah, fully self-driving cars, right? Like software platforms are generally building cruise control and a certain level of like self-driving. The ability to build something that can operate any of these cars, right? That you could put into Waymo or Uber or whatever. That's essentially the shift. So it really is, like you said, it competes more with remote teammates than it does with an AppFolio.
Makes sense.
A system of record.
What have been the tenants' reactions? Because even if let's say it's better than calling offshore, calling someone onshore, it's just different. They hear a robot voice and it's just like, people don't like change.
Yeah.
Right. So like, what has been
very real though?
What has been some of the reactions, or do you have any of that? Just like
for sure. Actually, for the first time ever, we're able to measure resident sentiment live on every conversation because AI can do that. Right. So, we are.
And then improve upon it. Right. Like it once. Right.
100%. Right. Like, so I can go down the rabbit hole of the sentiment piece if you want in a second, because I think it's one of the biggest changers of it. But short answer, the biggest change is that now they're actually getting responded to the moment that they have an issue, and they love it. Right. Like we have this. Nobody does laundry on the 4th of July because they like are choosing to do that. They're doing that because that's like their 1 minute to do it. And if their laundry machine isn't working right, and they're going to call in, and they're not going to be able to like get they're not going to be able to talk to someone, which is usually what the issue is. Instead, they're calling in, they're talking to an AI that's helping them troubleshoot and fix it themselves. Or at the very least say, hey, don't worry about it. Work tickets in the morning, you're going to hear from a vendor, as opposed to like waiting to the next day to figure out what's going on. It's a big deal. Like, so the short story is residents love it. Because the difference is being heard and attended to versus not being heard and attended to in the majority of cases.
We could put a link in the show notes. You did a podcast episode on one of your podcasts of like, it was actual call back and forth. It was pretty cool. So it sounds very real.
Yeah.
Nice. Let's go down the sentiment rabbit hole, because we always think like what tenants want. Like, what are some of the surprises you've seen from?
Well, the sentiment rabbit hole is this, right? It's the idea that normally you're not getting to, you guys aren't taking these calls, right? Like unless you're a one-man shop, you're not talking to these renters, right? Like you're not doing this, right? So you're counting on people that work for you to not just get through their workday, but also have like the wherewithal to be like, oh, this person sounds upset, man. Like I should do this. Like I don't know about you guys, but like I see emails from my staff where I'm just like, hey guys, like when you read this needs to be addressed differently than
It's in all caps.
this
guy's not happy.
Yeah, this needs to be addressed differently than the typical response. You're not just following a process when someone's emotional, right? The AI can see that stuff when it's happening, and the AI can surface. Right now, this resident seems to be having a subpar experience. We believe it's because of this or this, right? Like it could be that the vendor's messing up. It could be, like that we're not attending to, that we're not really listening to them, whatever. But it can surface that in real time. The alternative to that is that thing happened. Renters was just kind of like pissed, whatever. It passed. They're still paying their rent. It happens again. You don't know it until they either don't renew or until they file a Google review, right? At that point, you're firefighting, right? So like the idea that like AI is able to like find all this type of stuff and allow you to like quell embers instead of like fighting fires later, that's really, really happening. And we're seeing an average of 94% resident sentiment, like happiness across the board with our clients. And what we see is that they come in and they're somewhere in like, 60 to 70 is really is pretty good, but you have these like moments where like it really, really dips, and the ability to just like proactively, handle it with the vendor so that they know what they need to be doing and they don't do that again, and then call the resident and be like, hey man, I know that this has happened, so I'm just going to show up next time. I'm going to be there for you, right? Like it's a big deal. Real estate is about as emotional as it gets, right? Because the renter, it's their home, it's their sense of security. The investor, it's a large piece of the pie, right? Like there's no small real estate investment, right? So like managing these tempers is huge.
I know for me, if I'm pissed and I end up getting somebody with barely good English in the Philippines, I'm pissed and I'm saying, send me back to America or let me see your supervisor. Like, is there any sort of like responses you see happen with that? Is it a small percentage? Like, there's got to be people that just, I think there's a lot of people that don't even realize they're talking AI at times.
Most people don't.
So
Yeah.
So do you ever get these edge cases where it's like people are like, pissed?
For sure. And if they're that pissed and they realize they're AI and they're like, I want to talk to somebody, then the AI knows to forward it to somebody, right? But like,
so AI smart enough to
instead of taking every call, right?
Yeah.
Like, and you're getting it with context, right? Like you're getting an angry person forwarded to you, like, hey, dude, this person's calling because they're pissed about this. This is the status. You're showing up, they're fully prepared, as opposed to you're just playing Russian roulette, picking up the phone all the time.
The worst is when you're pissed and they do start transferring. Before they transfer, like, well, is there anything more I can help you with? No, motherfucker, transfer me, dude. Like, can't you hear? Like, I'm pissed at you. Like,
People's Gas always end every convo with and are you totally satisfied with like People's Gas? It's like, I've been on hold for 3 hours. Like, why would you ask me this question?
Like, yeah. So, the context of knowing not to ask that, right? Like, that's very, very real. And that is tough for an overseas call service to do, but an AI agent that you can just train to know like when to do that and when to not do it is 100%.
Yeah. So we have a lot of owner operators on this that listen to the show. Like, at what sense does it? Some of them may think like, that's great, I don't have to answer it. Or you're at the Cubs game and you don't have to answer it. Someone kind of does that first part or can handle 80% of them. Like, at what point for a self-manager it makes sense to bring on a tool like your guys'? Or I don't know if you call it tool, software, product.
Yeah.
What are you? Are you a?
It's what I am human, guys.
An
AI agent.
Okay, bring on an agent.
It's a hiring decision. Right? Like when are you at the point where you're like willing to pay somebody $500 a month to like take stuff off of your plate? I think the biggest shift is the fact that it used to be you do stuff until you can hire a human that's kind of like a C player, right? Because you can't really afford that much and you can't like, you got to like dip your toe into it. So then it starts setting your expectations of like what talent really is and what's out there. I think today your first hire should be an AI agent, because the AI agent is actually a BB plus player, and you're getting it at the price of a remote worker that's in the Philippines or in Colombia or Mexico or
probably
whatever.
Even less than that, even if you're going to look at it on a whole monthly basis.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing, what would investors have to have ready for this, right? I assume if you're a one-man show and you're just doing everything via text and going crazy, which last year I've tried to transition out of that. This isn't going to work, right? You still need to have processes. Like, you still need to define everything. Like, what are some of the things you have to have in place so the agent's not set up to fail?
Yeah. So what's really interesting now is that now that we're at a certain scale, our agent is already coming in with like 8 years, 9 years of experience. So our agent can go through. I don't want to answer this in a way that I'm just like selling my product. I'm just kind of like trying to. I'm telling you what it looked like, what's really possible out there, right? Like,
you got to train a new employee. Like what
you got to train a new employee to be like you, But if you are working with a company that has already like a well-formed agent that has enough experience, it's kind of like if you hired your competition's maintenance coordinator and they came over, they already know how to do 75, 80% of the job. They just got to learn the extra 20% of exactly how you want it done. So, and that is just like training a new employee, right? That is giving them feedback. That's having one-on-ones with them weekly, reviewing some of their work really, really early on, and then it becomes management by exception. But the short answer for what we're doing is we can now, because we have this like database of behavior of the agent taking actions now, our agent can look through their history on their platform, right? Like if you have a system of record, an AppFolio, a rent find, whatever, it looks through the history. It can compare what the actions have been taken versus the policies, right? Like look at your lease agreement, look at your policies that you already have in place and say, hey man, like this is what you're doing over here. This is what you say you're doing. Which one do you want, right? And if you don't have any of it, we can just say, all right, cool. Well, this is like the standard across like what everybody does. Which things do you like here? Which things do you don't? And tell us what you want to change. And boom, that thing is trained with like all this context. And then what you want to do is spend the first 30 days, still not giving it the job completely, watching it the job all the time and continuing to ask questions. And if you spend the first 30 days, like as an overprotective parent, asking your new employee kind of like, hey, why'd you do it that way? Cool, I like it, or I don't like it. Over here, we do it this way. Oh, that's cool. Let's adopt that here.
So is training just like when you maybe listen to a call that happened this afternoon? Is it just like talking to Claude, like going back and forth? Like, hey, I read your transcript. I can't believe you said that. Please word it this way next time, because here in Chicago, this is how it works.
Exactly. That's exactly right. I have two property managers in Florida, right? Like one of them is a client, one is not. When she onboarded us, she was looking at the triage troubleshooting agent talking to someone, and they were talking about like a problem with the water heater. Like, oh yeah, we'll go down to the basement, check it out. She's like, oh hey, we're in Florida, we don't have basements. Ask about the garage or the utility room, right? And that's it. That's all you say. And then now it knows.
So what do you see like the future of property management? Like, does this make it teams get skinnier? Does it get more effective? Does it get like? It just seems like a wild transformation because it is a people service business right now. It's almost more closer to hospitality than anything else.
Yeah. I think it's going to go that way. I think from a first principle standpoint, when you have these kinds of innovations, you go from essentially having like 1, 2, or 3 choices to having a bunch of choices, right? Like I think as we were talking about before it was like I can manage it myself. I can give it to like a rookie real estate broker that also wants to do property management on the side, or I can give it to a professional property management company to do it. Those are kind of like the 3 options, right? As this stuff develops, I think there's going to be 40 different types of options of property management, right? Like it's going to be akin to if you ever wanted to sell a product before, you used to either have to like build a product and get it into like retail stores or have your own storefront or like your own kiosk or mail order or whatever, to now there's like all this like e-commerce ecosystem TikTok shops and Amazon and all this type of stuff, right? Like the foundational law is that new categories create new categories, right? So like there's going to be a bunch of different categories of property management. And I think it's going to look like there's going to be bigger players than ever that own bigger market share than have ever done before. But then there's also going to be all these different types of niches, right? Like there's going to be the really upscale, like super high touch property manager that because they have AI doing all this stuff, they can like really provide you this like hospitality concierge service. They can be the person that's like, oh, I niche into homes that allow dogs. And I'm going to build a whole flywheel around like mobile dog grooming and dog park events that create community around all the people that rent with me and like all these different types of things, right? Like there's going to be all these different types of niches that can happen that some are going to be like, hey, you want the super low cost, like all AI thing? Cool. 2% fee, right? You want the like super high touch thing that is like, staying at a hotel, cool, 10, 12% fee, and it's going to come with all these other things and you're going to attract all these other things and everything in between, right? Like there's just going to be a lot.
I do think management fees will go to 0 at some point in the future, and it's just like all the, call it add-on things that get done as part of the process. So I do think that will
be one version for sure.
Well, it's crazy, like the property management fee like exists because you have overhead and you need to cover it. So it's just been like this industry standard thing.
Yeah.
And it's just weird. It's like, in my head, it's like this made up number. I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's just the way it worked out. That's tied to a percentage of rent where it's like if you're in an A class and you have higher rents, like let's say average $3,000 a month, you get paid more, even though you're doing less work than if you're in like a C or D area where the rents are lower and it's more touch.
And you
like it's a bonkers pricing model when you break it down. Like, why do we do it this way? Well, because we've always done it this way.
Well,
like,
and it comes from the bankers. The bankers are the ones that really just initially when they started. We
need to put in a placeholder so it's going to be
bankers
this percent.
in the late 70s, early 80s, they wanted to make it tougher to get loans. So they added this line item of management fees in there, which was a real expense, but it was really time back then. It wasn't professional property managers. And it was always at 8%. And that was one of the like kind of jumping off points of how the pricing models for property managers across the country really got in place.
Is this also tied into, like, I see like a lot of shops are getting bought right now. Like everyone I feel like just keeps rolling up. There's like, whether that's venture capital money, is this like the similar, hey, we see this is what's happening in the future and we want units. We want to get bigger, bigger and bigger. Or is this like not correlated at all?
Or they want out because they don't want anything to do with AI and they don't.
That's the other guy who's just like, I'm done.
Yeah,
like,
you take it, man. You do what you want with it.
Yeah. I mean, you've been around this game longer than me. What I saw was in the 2018, right, like 2014-ish, remote teammates and softwares actually built for property management came around. And that got followed by like a heavy roll-up acquisition period, right? Like I'd say 2018 to 2022, people were buying and rolling up property management companies. That reached a certain breaking point of like scale that they couldn't get to. All this like churn that happens when they acquire.
They couldn't operate it. They couldn't run it. These companies are great mergers and acquisition guys, but they couldn't operate across all these different markets with people not being pissed. So there's companies that have bought 30, 40,000 doors, and today they have 13.
Exactly. So that was the last round. I think there's going to be another big round, right? Like now the tooling has changed. A lot of that churn came from not being able to keep the context that was in people's heads, like across markets and all these different things. AI is going to solve for that. So it's going to allow for a new level of scale. There's going to be new theses around like, how can we build an at-scale property management company? And there's going to be another round of acquisitions. And like you said, I think the people that are like, you know what, man, I don't want to go on like I don't want to like transform with AI myself. So I'd rather cash out now and let them transform me. That's going to lead to those acquisitions. I assume that the last round and the bitter taste from the last round is going to create lower valuations in this round on the front end until people start realizing, oh no, actually, because I did figure out this like AI infrastructure, I can offer more because I'm not going to have that same churn rate as I did before. So I think it'll affect it that way as well.
I think what I've seen is a lot of investors, entrepreneurs want to come and buy, they might not even be in the space, buy a company. We got offered last year, but that guy's whole goal was to make sure he's profitable from the mortgage company that he rolls up underneath it, the State Farm agency that he has incorporated. He's able to sell the tenant insurance, like all these different things, and then maybe buy 5 or 6 other companies in the Midwest and have a company 10 times the size it is today. So, but they use GC as a jumping off point. Like that's kind of what I'm seeing happen.
I love that model. I love the model of the property management company at the center of a flywheel that then leads to all these other revenue streams. It's what JWB has done. Right, like I think it's brilliant. I think that's how Amazon operates, right? Like they figured out how to turn cost centers into profit centers, and when you're a property manager, like the ability to like make an asset perform, and the access to off-market deals is kind of like a wonderful combination of golden goose for real estate investing. So, I love the model of like, I'm going to be a property manager, but it's going to be like my hedgehog that's like a center of a flywheel that spits off all the revenue models instead of just focusing on like how big of a property management company can I build.
Yep.
Cool.
Good stuff. Ready to wrap?
Yeah. You ready for the rapid round?
Are we going to wrap?
We're going to wrap.
Yeah.
All right, drop a beat. Let's go.
All right. What is your competitive advantage? How have you been able to do this while other people wish they even understood community?
Because I was born in Venezuela and then lived in Spain for a while and then moved to the United States, and I've like my formative memories have always been of being an outsider, desperately wanting to belong, and because of that, I approach the world from a what's in it for you standpoint, and I communicate from a what's in it from you standpoint, and to me, that is what I think people really, really miss. It's like speaking in terms of the person in front of you's priorities will go way further for you than speaking in terms of your own priorities. I think that's my competitive advantage. That's just how I think.
Awesome. And you're an investor yourself as well. What is the one piece of advice you would tell someone that is yet to buy their first property?
Is it too cheesy to say don't wait to buy real estate and wait? Like get in, man.
No, that's
like
it. People need that. If there's someone listening right now that just needed to hear that.
People needed that, man. Like listen, I think we're in a moment right now where suppressed interest rates, like elevated interest rates has suppressed demand for a really, really long time. So the world looks super, super scary. And now it's been there for so long that yes, we're going to wait for, all right, so high interest rates suppress demand, right? Historically speaking, when the interest rates drop, that demand rebounds and it's like a coil effect, right? So that's going to happen. That being said, I don't know when interest rates are going to go back down again because of inflation and war and AI and all this stuff. But what I'm seeing now is that it's been suppressed for so long, you can only suppress a necessary, like a necessary need, right? Like a critical need for so long before there's a new normalization. And it feels to me that we are coming into this like new normalization of home price appreciation again, even based on high interest rates. So like, I think right now is a really, really good time to like figure out how you can get in and buy your first thing, because you're going to learn about kind of like you're backloading this like home price appreciation and your ability to refinance and play with your equity if you get in right now.
What do you do for
I'm
fun?
not a financial advisor. Go ahead.
What do you do for fun?
I like to surf. I like that content lifestyle, man. I like to make friends with people. And I like to do this like one specific rendition of Total Eclipse of the Heart when I do karaoke.
I've seen
With the F-bombs?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you got to do it.
Yeah.
Lost half our listeners on that one.
I go to the beach 5-6 times a week, man. Like I spend a lot of time on the beach. That's my definition of fun.
This guy's brought to the property management industry the whole idea of like, if we're going to have a conference, he's got to be near a karaoke place, because this guy's just like, karaoke.
It's true. That is my legacy.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, give us a good book, podcast, or self-development activity besides karaoke that you'd recommend to our listeners.
I mean, don't sleep on karaoke, first of all. Man, the book that really changed it for me is a book called Play Bigger. That's where this whole idea of like category design and how you create a future different than the past is something that really, really interests me. So Play Bigger is what I would recommend.
Other than yourself, name a valuable resource for Chicago real estate investors.
A valuable resource for Chicago real estate investors, man. Oof, I would really pay attention to what JWB is doing. Like they're building a really, really, really compelling business around real estate and real estate development and placemaking that started from just 4 dudes that started buying houses and like how big it can go. So I'm a big believer in looking at other contexts and bringing it into what you're doing. And I think that what JWB Real Estate Capital is doing in Jacksonville is something that people should really, really
watch. They've done 6,000 units, correct? Like
they manage right around 6,000 units right now.
They've developed all those?
No, they probably built or developed somewhere around 2,000 of those.
Okay.
And right now they are developing 20 city blocks of downtown Jacksonville with this like thesis of, when we've seen this happen in other downtowns where the terminology is going from an 8-hour downtown to an 18-hour downtown.
Yeah.
8-hour downtown where you go work and then go home. 18-hour downtown, it becomes an entertainment destination. And when you see that happen in the last 20 years, when we've seen it happen in Nashville and Charlotte and Austin and Denver, all this stuff, home price appreciation goes up by like 80% for like the immediate future afterwards. And they've like taken down to a science, kind of like what makes a downtown tip into doing that, and they're executing on it flawlessly, and I think it's incredible.
That's cool, man. I haven't been to Jacksonville in like 10 years. My brother used to work there.
Yeah,
and we used to sneak down to St. Augustine for.
I love St. Augustine.
Right, because that was where
Much
there's more
cooler.
actually. Yeah, there's more things to do because there wasn't much in downtown there where you're staying. So, all right, Pablo, thank you so much. You provide a ton of value to our listeners. How can they learn more about you? Is there any way they can provide value to you?
Oh man, Pablo Gonzalez is like looking for the John Smith that has 6 kids and names them all after himself. So it's really hard to find me. I would say the way that you add value to me, man, I really respect people that are putting out content and helping other people like yourselves. You want to add value to me? Go review this podcast and take a screenshot of like one of the episodes and send it to somebody, and then tell Mark about it, and Mark will introduce us, right? Like I think whoever, like be someone of service, like show up by adding value to people. So like add value to this podcast by sharing it and by reviewing you guys' show, and that'll be an easy way to connect with me.
Awesome. Appreciate it. We are playing, all right, we got our Chicago Fact we end every episode with. We have our sponsor. Who we playing for?
All right, so we're playing for John Christie, who bought a T-shirt on the Straight Up Chicago merch store, straightupchicagoinvestor.com merch. And John, if myself or Pablo gets the question right, you get $50 gift card brought to you by today's sponsor, Renovo Financial, the Workman Team. So we're on the same team right now. So we got to get this question right for John Christie, and so our sponsor has to pay the $50.
Sick.
I'll be honest, I have no idea on this one. Your question today, how many Divvy bike stations are there in Chicago? And your options are 100, 400, 800, 1600.
I don't know how them or the scooters make money. I just see them trashed like everywhere. Like
Asking for a friend, did he like station?
Divvy bike station.
Divvy bike, okay,
yeah,
like
the
a city bike?
Yeah.
it's not P. Diddy with oil all over the city.
I was like, ooh.
What's the option again?
100, 400, 800, 1600.
So it's like we rent a bike.
Yeah. I got it. We had city bikes in Miami. It was kind
Same
of similar.
concept,
Yeah,
yeah.
Same concept. Is it only
What
in the urban?
math are you doing in your head? Like, what is that?
Yeah. What are you doing? Are they only in the urban core, or do they like go beyond?
They're in the
like,
city. Like they have them
they're-
in my neighborhood. In my neighborhood, yeah.
So they have like a Jeff Park and all that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, so I'm going to go with 400, and you're going to go with...
yeah, I'll go with 400.
No, you got to go with another
choose
one.
another one.
Oh,
no.
okay.
got two shots.
We get to
It's a
hedge.
50-50 thing.
All right. So what was it? 100, 400, 800?
1600.
I'll go 800.
800 it is.
Wow, 800 seems like so many.
Who did I just make money for?
All right,
You lost our sponsor $50.
John
you did
Christie,
it.
you
One
got
of
a
our
$50
listeners who
gift
purchased
card.
it.
John,
Yeah.
you're welcome, bro.
brought to you by today's sponsor, Renovo Financial. Good job.
Oh,
Good
we're
guess?
thinking can afford it.
Man, there's 800, huh?
That's according to AI. So like, if it's wrong, yeah.
All right, well, congratulations, John. Pablo, thank you for coming on. Tom, thank you. Listeners, go to Straight Up Chicago Investor Facebook Club. We're talking about community today. Join there. We have a few thousand people on there. We would love to have you on there. Put in your information. We'll accept you within 24 hours. And then start posting if there's something you need, or maybe you have something to give to the community. So, Pablo, thank you. Tom, thank you. Listeners, we'll see you next week.
Thanks all.